So it's not the first time that you're going to slide off and do something really stupid.
Oh, 2 NOS cans is too thick.
I'm gonna apologize for my language right now.
I'm here to go run snowcats.
You're listening to the Blade Dive Podcast. Now, the man who prefers the center seat stacks loaves of snow using the sound of his voice and is able to refuel his machine, but not the DEF tank. And unlike others, very much enjoys snowcats and sunset photos. Here's your host, Parker Bohan.
Here we go, everybody. Welcome back to the Blade Dive presented by Prenoth. Excited to be back on the microphone, as I always am. But if you're a first-time listener to this show, thanks for tuning in. You're in for a treat. And if you've been a long-time supporter of this podcast, I'm so thankful. So appreciate you being back. A couple of things really quick. One, I am turning the Blade Dive website, or a portion of it, into a job board. So if you want to get that operator-specific job up there, or the terrain park day crew job, or the snowmaking job up there, let's do that. There's a form to fill out on the webpage. You can't miss it. Head on over to www.thebladedive.com. Let's talk. Okay, episode 49, Ken Gaitor. If you've been living under a rock and don't know who Ken is, he's been a huge contributor to Cutter's Camp ever since its inception. And he has also been a huge contributor to the industry long before he was the terrain park manager at Brighton Resort in 1997, where he was essentially a part of the golden era of park riding as it took off. Ken was the terrain park manager at Mount Snow, Carinthia, during the time that Carinthia really expanded into its mountain-wide terrain park operation, with that portion of the mountain at least. And then he moved on to be the VP of operations at Snowshoe, where he's made some pretty massive impacts as well. This one's got huge laughs, big stories, and you know the deal. If you're at home listening, grab your favorite drink, kick your feet up, and if you're in the machine anywhere in the world, turn up the volume.
Go ahead and give it the juice. Already.
What is up, everybody? I am here live at Timberline Lodge with Ken Gaitor, VP of Mountain Operations with Snowshoe Mountain in West Virginia, which has a special place in my heart because I've visited there many times. Ken, thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
You know we do. We kick this thing off with a special guest question. I have one from no one other than Elijah Hamilton. So here we go.
Hi, Ken. It's Elijah. You were the terrain park manager at Mount Snow back when we decided to make Carinthia all terrain park side of the mountain. It was a huge project, and you were the man that had to coordinate and make it all happen. What was that like for you in the early days? You and I had plenty of conflict, and it always seemed like, as cheesy as it sounds, it made us closer friends. I feel like that's really rare, but do you find that that's common for you? Love you, brother. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll take it as kind of a two-parter. Carinthia in the get-go never felt like a job. I know as cliche as that sounds.
I don't think it's cliche.
I waited for probably a decade to get an opportunity like that you're just able to take an entire mountain face, something like 12 trails, tons of snowmaking, a lodge, and do everything from the ground park to, the large park, to talking about F&B and building tables for the lodge and what was the scene supposed to feel like. And it was literally a dream come true. And to have the Boyd family get behind that, and in fact, they were in front of it. We had that concept in our heads, Eli and I and some others, but they just came to the table and like, let's do this. Here's the money, go. And, really gave us a chance to express creativity. It gave us a chance to show off a crew that we had been building for some years. And it succeeded, and it's still there today. So that that really gives me a sense of accomplishment. I was only there for the first 2 years, but there was a solid year of planning before that. And to get that thing rolling and off the ground and watch that crew run was so meaningful. To build a mini ramp on the deck of the lodge, and just get to shred it whenever I wanted, and put my office at the top of the Grom Park. Took an old race shack and set it out in the woods at the top of the Grom Park. So when I was doing my office work, I just look up and watch Groms shred and just feel great about that. It was so special, and it's nothing I've ever taken for granted.
Yeah.
And then second part of that question about, do I work best through conflict, I think is the way he's kind of describing it.
Yeah. That's how I see it.
Absolutely, yeah. I like to push. I don't know if it's envelopes or buttons, but I really enjoy challenging people and asking them their real feelings and their motivations. And sometimes you got to dig in there a little bit, and you almost open up some wounds. And I'm not saying it's the right way to behave, by any means, but it is who I am, and I've come to understand that. And I've mellowed over time for sure.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's great, because I needed that. But I don't mind a little conflict. It's part of who I am.
Do you feel like conflict was one of those things that ultimately, like Elia mentioned, how that really came to fruition, and battling through that kind of emotions, rather maybe that maybe some folks thought it should be and look one way, and you had a vision for it, and he described you as kind of being the man for the job to make that happen?
I think the where conflict came into play there was my career leading up to that moment. But when I hit that moment, what happened was, through Elia and through Peak Resorts and through, people like Kelly Pollock, who was then the GM at Mount Snow, there was just nothing but support. They just put it in front of us, and we just rolled the ball, and I think we knocked it down. And so where the conflict came in was the years of what I would call struggle and growth. Not only my own struggles with learning how to actually operate a snowcat, run a crew, do the things that terrain park managers have to do, but also, conflict within myself of, do I have this? Am I, there's always insecurities. And so, it was a matter of professional and personal development. And I ran into roadblocks with myself and with others. And by learning how to overcome those, I think it set me up for that moment.
Okay.
So that's where conflict helped.
I would be curious too. I know I really want to get into the history of what it is for you to be a part of the terrain park, the ski industry as a whole. But I think before we do that, it would be rad to kind of learn a little bit about who you are, Ken Gaitor outside of the industry. So maybe give us a brief synopsis of you growing up. What was it like to be Ken Gaitor?
Well, I grew up in West Virginia on top of what's called Big Bend Mountain. There's a famous legend from there about John Henry, who raced a steam engine through the mountain, that I grew up on. And so I always grew up with John Henry kind of in my mind. It's a great story, great way to feel. And outside 100% of the time, climbing trees. I love to roll rocks, down the side of the hillside. I loved being a part of nature, watching nature. Never really a hunter or fisherman, but more of an observer.
Sure.
And I would climb a tree and sit there and eat fruit and watch stuff for a long time as a kid. And then we moved to Delaware for high school years, and I picked up a skateboard and picked up a group of skateboarding friends. And it tweaked my mind, and in a great way. and I spent every waking hour thinking about skateboarding. So I went straight from the woods to skateboarding, which was really weird, and it was a bit of a culture shock, and I struggled. I struggled with finding a way to exist in that environment without conflict. Sorry, I came back to that, but
no, it's all good.
You know, there's trouble with, you know, teachers, trouble with rules, trouble with police, trouble with my parents. So that was a tough transition for me, but skateboarding made it happen, and it took me around the corner. Yeah, I'll never forget that. And so I'd say the part of me that loves our industry the most is the skateboarder, and that's why I chose the path of terrain parks.
Yeah, because it resonated with you.
Absolutely, just the shapes, the fun, the speed, the feelings of G forces. I don't know how to describe it, but I love to ride vert half pipe. And so it worked right. Once I figured out I could strap something onto my feet and ride a snow half pipe where it's not quite as consequential.
Sure.
Still was consequential, but it was just opened up a big door of fun.
Yeah.
And so spent some time in Delaware there, got through high school, moved to upstate New York for college. Really picked up a great group of skateboarders up there that were really core in Albany, New York. It was one of those moments that you look back in time, and I was hanging out with these people that I never should have been hanging out with. Like, I was blessed and just had great timing in the right place, right in time. And that really pushed my skateboarding and got me through college. And when I first got there, I was like, I'm going to skateboard all year, and I did. But then I kind of, once it started snowing, that was out for a little bit because there were not a lot of indoor parks or whatever. And it was like, well, if you're going to be here, you better learn how to enjoy the snow. Picked up the snowboard, went up to Stratton, was hiking the pipe with my buddy Nate, who really introduced me, took me from skateboarding into snowboarding. But we kept skating. It's just, we just had both, which was awesome. And I'll never forget today. I told this story the other night, but we were hiking the pipe at Stratton. It was before opening. We had walked all the way up there just to get some fresh cut lines because we heard it was going to be cut. And we were sitting in the bottom of the pipe, kind of pulling off our clothes and getting ready to start hiking. And a guy came, snowboarding down through the park and into the pipe, and he had a rake, and he was cutting out the little curb that in those days was ever so prevalent at the bottom of the transition. And if you don't do it right, even today, it's there. And he was just whittling at that thing all the way down the pipe, and he eventually slid down to us and started talking to him. And that was Hooter. That was Dave Van Houten, who, a lot of people know who Dave Van Houten is. And he may not even know his story. But right in that moment when he told me that this was his job, it was like that.
You were hooked.
That was it. It was my career from there on. That was the moment.
You were in. This is the shit, by the way. Like we're at Ramshead Bar in Timberline Lodge, and you're giving me the dirt on your story. This is amazing. So yeah, I'm totally fanboying out right now. When you take the hand crew person and place them in a snowcat, it can be definitely intimidating. And so, from what I understand, you have a very a unique process, so to speak, on how you position people in those roles, rather than just like saying, "Oh yeah, sink or swim, have a nice day." You'll get out there and figure it out. Like you seem like the leader that wants to set people up for success, so to speak.
I'd like to think so. I know, I have room to grow in every single area, but I think that's a tough question to answer. But there's a gut, right? There's a gut feeling that you get about people.
Yeah.
You can watch people work especially work in a group. I'll give you an example.
Sure, go.
Right. Work on the river as a whitewater raft guide for years and years and years. and I trained guides.
Might talk about that later, by the way.
Yeah, and then I won't go too long into it, but there's a very simple thing that I think about, which is in the mornings you have to blow up the boats, and you have to move them to a position near the riverbank, and then you wait for the guests.
Yeah.
And there's 6 handles on these boats, and there'll be 6, 7, 8 people doing that work. And if all 6 of those handles aren't grabbed at the same moment, your efficiency sucks, and it's actually painful for somebody who doesn't have somebody to hold the handle next to them. And it went through me. I would watch that one slacker not grab that handle, like just not even walk over there, or not grab it right at the moment when they needed to be grabbing it. And that equated to they're a letdown. They're letting their team down.
Yeah.
And it's a very simple thing, but it's everything.
Sure.
Know the timing, know your role.
Yep. Jump
in there and pick up the fucking boat. You know what I mean? They're heavy.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. No, I think relatability is super important to me. Like that's how I kind of that's my language. A business unit that I've been a part of requires a similar effort, and because of that, I think process can ultimately be refined. And so I guess maybe that's my question to you is, if you were to say hey, all 6 handles got to be picked up in order to make this thing move forward, but if it's somebody on the front and back, bow or stern, how have you essentially refined your process to make sure that effort moves forward?
No, that's a great way of putting a question. I think that, setting a clear expectation is the number one thing, right? The first thing.
Yeah.
The training will come.
Yeah.
The expectation, first of all, is that you do your very best. You be there. First, let's show up. Let's not just show up physically on time, but let's show up as part of what a team you want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And engage. And then, maybe the timing isn't all the same, but when is your time? And don't be a second late, right? Hit the cymbal on the rhythm.
Yeah.
And be that person that other folks can count on.
Yeah.
And so when you ask me about who do I want to promote or who do I want to help, I want to help the person that wants to hit the cymbal at the right moment.
Sure.
And I want to make sure that they understand that the train moves much more efficiently if their timing is on and their attitude is right.
No, that totally makes sense. Was there a person that just sticks out in your mind that kind of resonates with you, that taught you that, or was that self-taught?
I mean, I give credit to the family, of course. They've got the biggest influence, and I've been fortunate, from birth to this moment to be around special people, family first and foremost.
Yep.
So I've just been lucky. I've been able to catch the timing, but let me tell you this quick one here, man.
Go long if you need to, bro.
Yeah, so in Delaware, I had a little bit of trouble in school. I ended up getting kicked out, right before graduation, which was a real shame, and it was a real disappointment for my family and myself. And I had to take a job, and I took a job at this place called Mr. Donut, and it was a donut shop. It was Dunkin' Donuts, but
I ain't got no shame at working at a donut shop. I'm down with the donut shop.
I had to wear a little pink smock. It was awesome. But the guy that hired me there.
Is there a photo of that, by the way, somewhere?
I'm sure there is.
Oh my God.
But the guy that hired me, his name was Jeff, and he was the manager. And this guy, for whatever reason, man, he took a shine to me. And I worked there 2 months, and he made me the assistant manager. I think I was just under 18 years old.
Yeah.
Here I am running a donut shop, and I'm doing my very best, but I was running hard. I was skating all the time. I was staying out late. I was maybe not doing all the most positive things for myself.
Yeah.
But I was going hard, and I was sleeping very little. and I was making mistakes. As you can imagine, a 17-year-old that got to be in charge of money, you know, and like people.
Yeah.
And I was racking up mistakes like no tomorrow. This dude, Jeff, man, he stood there right next to me and he forgave me, and he just, you know, gave me these looks, and he would laugh and he would point me in the right direction. And he gave me more chances than I should have had, but I gained so much. I also gained a bit of a weakness where I just will keep giving people chances. And
that was my question. You just took right out of my mouth. I was like, all right, I'm going to ask him if he just was willing to give out the same kind of chances.
I mean, I've become a little different over the years, but I'm still just basically soft, and I will let people take advantage of me, and I will give them another shot. I'll be honest with them about how it makes me feel, and about, you know, what I expect from here.
Yeah.
You know, and I get disappointed. You know, I'll take 2 or 3 chances, still get beat up, take third.
Yeah.
Then have to, you know, say, all right, it's not happening, or have a success story.
Yeah.
But when you have the success with someone like that, like I was, they're loyal.
Yeah.
They're very loyal, and they'll go to the mat for you.
Yeah.
And so if you can get them around the corner, man, you really got one.
Yeah, I just want the photo of the pink little apron that you were wearing.
Well, I had a little hat. There was a hat too, right? Like when I was hiding my mohawk, and it was awesome. You know?
Is there a picture of the mohawk somewhere too?
Oh yeah,
you have to show me that one. I haven't seen that one.
That was when I had the hair, so those
totally
are special pictures, man.
It threw me for a fucking loop with the pink apron.
You're not alone.
I gotta pull it back together. No, I think one thing that you literally just brought this up like today when you and I were talking. I think it's, you know, you treasure your, I don't want to call them alliances, but your friendships, and you treasure who you prop up, and maybe kind of like give us some insight on why there is no specific reason, since we are on the Snowcat podcast. Why is there never necessarily an allegiance to the hat that's on your head?
Oh, wow. Yeah, you trying to get me back for the smog. Right?
Not really.
No, that's cool. No, that's a good question, and I it's a function of who I am, and a function of who I think I need to be as a financial, being financially responsible for the place that I work. It's important that I do my due diligence when I'm spending the company's money.
Yeah.
You know, Elias says this, he'll say this to people too, and we're alike in this way. We've always said that we think we're good employees. You know, we're maybe not, we haven't started our own businesses. We're not, you know, out there like a Beckinsale as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Or a Dave Franzen is a very different person. We fancy ourselves to be great employees. And so to do that, you have to kind of treat that money like it's somewhat your own. Mm-hmm. And so if I was to say to Piston Bully or Prinoth, hey, my resort is with you 100%, will never change, don't worry about a thing. I see that as a bit financially irresponsible, because it's my job to make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck on those dollars. And also, if that service after the sale starts to lag, I cannot tolerate that. That is the number one thing that I need. And that's what my people need. And if I let that lapse, I let down my team and my role. So there's your answer.
That was poetic.
Snowcat poetic.
No, it was Snowcat poetic. You know, we don't have to go down like the favorite machine route, but like, you know, you seem like somebody that definitely values what it is to speak to somebody face to face. I can tell you straight up, like if we were to have this conversation remotely, it wouldn't be the same. It just wouldn't. It just would be fucking weird. To me,
also
it's
me, here, right? Like this place has a way of, it's got soul, right? I don't know how else to say it.
Is there one person, maybe two, maybe three, that you're super proud to have mentored or to have maybe been impacted yourself by?
This is a long list of people. You know, I watched a guy named TJ Maloney, who a lot of you may know. He worked at Mammoth for a while.
Good dude.
Yeah, he was over here at Meadows. I don't believe he's out of the business now, and that's fine, man. He's got a family, and he's a happy guy. And you know, when I first met TJ, it was when I first started at Mount Snow, and he was larger than life, man. Big guy from Boston, huge, strong snowboarder, and just loud, right? Like big personality. And managing him was, in the first couple of years, was a real challenge for me because I just wasn't quite sure how to handle him. But I watched that guy grow at Carinthia. He was there with me when we built that part, and then I watched him take off and manage over at Meadows. I watched him, go to Mammoth and succeed there. And he turned into this person that I have so much respect for. And so, yeah, I'd say TJ is one of those ones that really stands out in my mind. So many folks, there's a guy that I worked with for years, and I wouldn't even describe myself as being anything other than the guy's boss. But Sean Murphy, man, this is a snowboarder, who I think is, I don't know how many years he's on park crew at Carinthia right now, but he shredded in a way that inspired me. I felt like I showed up to work for Sean Murphy. He was on my crew. But it's just one of these really special people, genuine, happy, friendly, loving, had a woman he's in love with forever, and just wanted to rip shit. And he did and still does. And so just being around a guy like that meant so much to me. I can't describe myself as a mentor for him because he's more of a snowboarder than a park crew guy. I just wanted to be in his presence. Yeah. And I felt really proud of being able to build the things that he could create on. Yeah. Is that?
No, I mean, I get it. Like, I mean, what you're talking about from a leadership standpoint is that you felt and resonated with the fact that you could pour your energy, positive energy, into people just by being around them. It motivated you, that you wanted to do that, versus where I've never necessarily experienced that in my life, where I've been around somebody that just buzzes, so to speak, all the time, where it's like, oh, fuck, like, maybe Charles is probably the closest person to like the relatability piece, and Dodds as well. But I've never heard it put quite like the way that you said it.
Well, and I'm sure that there's, many other things that I could describe. There's been many people that I've been so proud of to watch move on, and move on and above where I am, and honored to see that. Sean has always struck me as just like an exceptional character. And when you talk about people who inspire you, like, like Elia, like a Dave Franzen, like, Benny, you talk about, there's so many people that I could look at and just touching them here and there, or having them come through your lives. And it seems like the timing is almost always right if you're paying attention to gain a little bit of something. Yeah. And that's so much what Cutters is about for me, is just, I mean, it doesn't matter who it is, right? You just got to pay attention.
I feel like you give a lot. I feel like you give. Do you feel like you give a lot? And is your expectation that you should receive something in return? And I guess maybe my question is, how do you refuel that? Because you never seem to really run out of energy, of the knowledge and the gift to be able to just give and bestow.
Well, thanks. That's very, very nice of you to say. And I think, we're here at Cutters, so it's hard to get your head out of Cutters because, I mean, I spend a month and a half charging myself up to come here. I spend the week before here talking myself out of coming here because I'm always sure that I'm not relevant. We've had this conversation.
We have, yeah.
I just know that I don't have anything to add, and then I get over it, right? And I get on the plane and I get here, and then the energy starts to pour. It pours like in one side of me, and it feels like it flows out the other. But I store some somewhere, like probably, I'm holding on to enough to get me through to the next time.
Yeah.
And it really means that much to me, this place and this environment. And so, yeah, I want to give. And I think if I could look at myself and, try to remain humble and not be a total ass, I do believe that I'm a giver, right? What I do expect and where I get sometimes disappointed, but more often than not rewarded for the gifts, are people living up to what I think they can be, or even in just one moment, not a whole lifetime. Just, I need you to, in my head, I'm like, just conquer this thing, whatever it is, whether it be a world-class mountain bike race or a dew tour. Let's do what I think you can do.
Yeah.
Right. And that's to gift back. And yeah, I do have a selfish expectation.
I think you and Day were really relating on just the fact that you've been in this game for so long. What is the value in being able to communicate to that corporate entity that, so to speak, kind of like finances everything, coming from the terrain park arena?
Well, you learn in the parks the dollar value, right? You learn the value of every dollar, and you learn what it takes to put on an event. You learn, like we learned at Carinthia a little bit about, a cheeseburger and whether it was going to go up against a hot dog, just because we were trying to think about what kids would like, breakfast burrito or French toast. I'm saying breakfast burrito. This is my opinion.
That's you. Yeah.
So, you're looking at all these things, and I deal, a lot of what I do right now is grab money and allocate it in what I think is fair and also a necessary way to dole out resources, right? So I know that right now, for example, my heavy equipment department is lacking a good loader, right? And good loader is important. Right. So I got to dig that money, and I got to figure that out. And I'll tell you what, you wouldn't think that there are a million creative ways, but until you've really dug in there and been a part of a corporation and the wording,
there's a lot. And
you can get incredibly creative.
You can. And
you can produce for your people things that if you hadn't learned, they weren't going to get.
Yeah.
And so I learned that directly from Elia. He always knew how to speak, and he taught me. I watched him. And then I also learned from great leaders like Kelly Pollock, I told you about. I work for a woman now named Patty Duncan, who just has a creative way of managing and allocating money that isn't – she's a genius at it. I've spent other time around people like Randy Doyle.
Oh, yeah.
I worked for him at Brighton, and this guy could smile money into your hand. I swear to Christ, I don't know how he did it. Like, he just had that smile, and, he'd see through you and manage you and give you what you need, and then reprimand you all with one look. But through being around people like that, I have learned a lot about how to get a hold of a resource based on a really solid business case and believe in it and pitch it and ultimately, get somebody to buy it.
Yeah.
And then most of the time succeed. Not always, right? Because without the failures, then you haven't learned a damn thing.
What I do want to get into are some of our push road questions, because we have already been chatting for an hour. So believe it or not, I'm going to dive into those.
bonus row question of the day.
So let's see if I can get names right here. Rory, Ronald Dump, a.k.a. on social media, wants to know what your favorite feature was that you built at Carinthia. Lighthearted question. Good transition.
Yeah, I think I did love to build the pipe with Elia because we got to sit there and fall asleep in front of each other for 100 hours or 150 hours, whatever it was. I just loved building the pipe with him. It wasn't about the pipe, and
There's more about the person.
Yeah, just spending the time and watching him, and he's always been a better operator, better pipe builder. And just so having, anytime you get a chance to be around a better operator is a chance you should take. So that was a great time. Now, as far as like pipe building for me was never the most fun because it's a spec.
Sure. Yeah. And
I was a little more of that skate style where I didn't really want to build to a spec. I wanted to build to a feeling. So I think the answer is probably this pack of 4, and Elia brought this up in his.
He did.
And that we built in Blanco Gulch, and it was the 420s, so it was just 4 20-foot jumps that we tried to get them almost exactly the same in a row, and very close to one another, like a bitch to maintain.
I was going to say like a motherfucker to groom.
Oh, so bad. They hated me for that, but let me tell you what, man. By the time you came down off that 4th one, if you connected them, because they were coming at you so fast, even if you connected them with straight airs, you were a happy son of a gun, right? Like you did something.
Oh yeah,
you were smiling.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. No, solid answer. Okay, so Brendan Poot, aka Where's Pooty on Instagram, wants to know. This is a deep one. Here we go. Biggest career mistake, best career decision. So kind of like 2 questions there in one.
Is it possible for it to be the same damn thing?
I mean, it can be. It can be, but I would prefer them to be 2 different. But you know, take it wherever you want. It's your episode.
I would say that in my younger years, when I was out and we were trying to figure out terrain parks, and I was a 20-something, just too cocky and, making decisions and building stuff that it wasn't within my reach. I don't want to say I was building some shitty stuff out there first couple years when I was learning to operate, but I was building some shitty stuff. Okay, it happened. And one day, the way it worked for me is I would come in at 11, get in the cat at midnight. I would push snow, either build a park or maintain a park. And then I would work till 9, park the snowcat, get my boots on, get my rake out, start working on snow fence, shaping lips. And one day, I think it was probably the very first year when I was trying to maintain that pace.
Yeah. Like, what do you mean when you mean pace? You mean just like
those hours, working from 11 to like 5.
Okay, that kind of pace, not necessarily like what you were building necessarily like all the time, but like working those hours.
Yeah, and trying to get as much done as I could. Not being a great operator, working in powder, now all natural, difficult, and a skill to it that took time to learn. But I remember pushing up this hip specifically. This stands out to me as one of my major failures. I pushed this hip up and I couldn't get the hip steep enough in that powder. And so I kept building a kink where my tracks would spin out when I was trying to reach the lip. And I kept trying, like an idiot. I just kept trying and trying and trying, and it never got right. And I pushed it right to the point where it was like 840 and I had to get off the hill, and I didn't leave myself time to get dressed and get around the horn, on the lift and back down to either rake the shit out of this thing. It really needed a shovel. It didn't need a rake. It needed some serious help, or boo it off. And so by the time I got down there, it was about 9:25, and there was a kid laying there, on the backside of that landing. and he was, out. And I just fell apart. I knew it was my fault, and it was. And it was because of that big ass kink. I know that what happened was he hit it too fast, first of all. But if that thing hadn't been there, it wouldn't have counter rotated him, and he, I think he landed on his head, and it just went through me, man. It fucking hurt, and it hurt. And I was upset, and I was also sleep deprived, and, just the whole thing, I just tried to bite off too much. And that kid paid the price. And I'm not saying that's the only injury I've ever been responsible for. And it's not the fun part of the job, man. It's not the fun part of the job now. I'm not the guy operating the machines. I'm not right there connected, but it's just not, it's not fun. And if you really let yourself go down that rabbit hole, which I did for a while, it impacted me. And I think my biggest mistake was not my timing that morning. My biggest mistake was just thinking I could do shit that I didn't know how to do yet, man.
Well, best career decision. I feel like that's kind of like biggest mistake, but if you could do best career decision.
Best career decision was the hardest career decision. And that was when I left Carinthia after year 2. And I left Elia and I left Mount Snow to go to West Virginia and take a promotion. Not a big promotion, but I was going to be the manager of snowmaking, grooming, and terrain parks. So I was going to manage 3 departments and branching out, and learning. And that was so difficult because we had so much fun doing that thing. And we had 2 years of solid, even in the first year, it got traction. Second year, it really started to hook up. And that third year was going to be the sweetheart year, man. I just knew that was going to be the year, because 3, how it is. 3 years is the number.
It's a moneymaker.
And
you either figure it out or you don't.
When I got that offer to go back home to West Virginia, it was it was a very difficult decision to make and to walk away from, best boss I've ever had. And that great opportunity, which was the dream come true. But I did that, and it was the right thing to do. It didn't feel like the right timing, but in retrospect, it was. And I think that if I had stuck around there at Carinthia, I would have continued to have fun for a few more years, but I'm not sure I had a great path. Because I had to.
You think so?
Well, I had Elia ahead of me, man. You talk about hitting the ceiling. This motherfucker was brick. You know what I mean? I wasn't going to go around that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm picking up what you're putting down for sure.
And I mean that with all the love. Right?
Yeah, but you come across and you talk and you walk as someone that can create opportunities for themselves. I'm going to keep going. I've got a couple more. Burns Photography on Instagram, 741-200. Wants to know any tips or tricks for 1 to 3 year operators.
Slow down, please. God, slow down. And if you're already slow, bless you.
Bless
I'll tell you what.
Yes.
And this is the thing: the 2 campers that I've worked with so far here. One was just got finished his 2nd year. The other one just got finished his 3rd year. So I feel like I'm speaking from a place of relevance.
Yeah.
These kids both were moving slow. And they were being careful. They were making those 3-point turns. That somebody had showed them how to be careful with the machine. And from where I sit, when the machines break, they break. When machines break because operators break them, I get pissed off.
Yeah.
And I see it happen a lot, even in my area.
Yeah, I do too.
And it's really disturbing because this is their livelihood too. And they don't seem to even understand because all of a sudden there's another machine sitting there and I'm guilty of enabling that, right? But just slow down and make your push 1 push instead of 3. and make every action deliberate.
Yeah.
Right? So that backup should be part of the plan. That work road should be clean and flat. And if your machine is rocking and rolling, first of all, we're all here at Cutters Camp, and we're staying up till 12 or midnight. And if you're out there rocking that machine back and forth, it sucks for the coaches. It really sucks. So if you're being careful, man, let me tell you, it means something to every single one of us.
It does.
And I'm not even kidding. And everyone I've trained, whether at Cutter Camp or not, just slow down. You can do the work. If you watch the really skilled operator, they're generally not in a rush.
Yeah.
And they get it done, and it's all of a sudden it's done.
Yeah.
And they're not moving real fast.
Yeah.
So slow down.
No, solid answer. All right, last one, and it's from Nick Boggs, is maybe talk a little bit about the great cooler heist of 2010.
Oh, my God.
He was like, you can't miss that one. You have to ask him. Don't fuck with me. You've got to ask him that question. Fortunately, we have Mr. Nick Boggs that has joined us in the booth.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
Good evening.
And I would just really appreciate, Nick, could you elaborate on the cooler heist situation since you just walked into the Ram's Head bar?
Well, yeah. It was the day before Thanksgiving.
What?
Yes. So literally there was, the core employees or all year round employees and like 4 guests. And we went up to Gaitor's house there, or his apartment. What was that, top of the world? Was that where
That's right.
So this was that Snowshoe.
Yeah, Snowshoe. Yeah. And Laura, was my girlfriend at the time, now my wife. And I think I went out to get
amazing mother, by the way. Beautiful baby girl.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, she's doing great. Thanks. Good times.
Yeah.
I think I went to get like an iPod, and we were talking to Gaitor and talking about metal or something. I was like, I'll go get my iPod. And I go down, and Laura went with me for some reason too. And we get off the elevator, and lo and behold, there's this gigantic cooler, and I'm like, man, that's crazy. She's like, take it.
I forgot all that part.
For all the folks who don't know my wife, she's a very she loves following the rules. And it surprised me, and I'm like, well, yeah, she's talking about it. Like, let's go. So I'm like, yeah, I'll take it and put it, drag it into the elevator and go upstairs and knock on Gaitor's door. And I was like, dude, look what I found.
Look at what I
And he was like, I don't think anyone just finds things. I was like, oh, no, there's no one down there. So we drug it in, and we pop it open. There's just a bunch of random stuff. And
yeah, but what is the random shit you're talking about?
Like
random booze. There was random
booze. And there's a bunch of like garbage, like
baby food.
Yeah, like Jägermeister, some Capri Suns, maybe, I don't know, like juice boxes. And lo and behold, growing up and being from West Virginia, I knew exactly what the top of a mason jar looks like. And pop that out, pull it out, and guess then moonshine. Yeah, so I was like, yeah, we gotta try it. We gotta see what.
Yeah, we were like moths to that flame. There was no turning back.
Break out the Carinthia shot glass, Carinthia double shot glasses. We started pouring it, and we're all doing our thing, and finally, Gaitor, being the guy is like, oh, maybe we should just take that back down. It's like, yeah, let's do it.
It's a leader right there. It's a leader.
Yeah, and our
good vibes.
Seth Boyd was with us, and he worked in the park with us. And I was like, Seth, you're coming with me, and then we go down. I was like, Seth, let's kick it out, and we're gonna head out of here. And the door opens, we're on the first floor, and the guy who owns it's like, oh, you guys, blah blah blah. And you're thieves. And I'm like, oh, no, we just found it, yada yada. So anyway,
he recognized him from Snowshoe TV, which plays in all the hotel rooms at the resort.
Yeah, every
They're like, oh, we've seen you before.
So he knew that they were employees
on public television.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. It could have been anybody.
Yeah.
So anyway, he was yelling at us, and he opened a cooler and was sifting through it, and he was like, you guys, he pulled out the bottle of Malibu rum mixer and was like, you guys drank all my Malibu rum mixer. No, we actually drank your moonshine, and it wasn't that great. Yeah. So, it all wound up. There was this guy like went as far as called like Stadies, and then there was this old guy named Clark who was a public safety there for years, man. And he knew me since I was a kid. And he was like, Boggs, get over here. And we're talking. He's like pulling out his pad, and I'm just like, Seth, fuck it, we're out. And we just run out the back door. And it's really unclear, like
where the fuck was Gaitor in all this?
I was in the room. I was like, you take that back. I'm staying here.
All right. So things next day, whatever. I don't even remember the shit after that. So Monday rolls around, and Dave Huber at the time was our ops director, and I had to have a meeting with Ken and Dave was tearing into me. This is why am I the last to know? This is you guys are on the TV, and what are you doing? And and I'm like, yep, fair enough. And then,
but I'm sitting over there just like,
yeah, he's giving me the disappointed dad look, and all he says is,
I know nothing.
Nope. He goes, Boggs, it's all about integrity. And I didn't say shit. I was like, you're right, Ken. And I looked at him, I just backed out the door. And he thanked me later because I didn't sell him out.
No, he hung in there.
Yeah.
And he hung in there. Yeah. Just remember, nobody talks, everybody walks, right?
True. Yeah. And then I ran into Dave Huber years later, and he was like, hey, Boggs, you remember that coolers thing? I was like, yeah. He's like, I'd have took that thing. You were dumb for taking it back.
It was my fault. I understand. I get it.
Yeah. And it worked out because Laura was leaving.
You're trying to be a good human being. That's all it boiled down to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Laura was leaving. She was heading out to Colorado, and I got a week off to hang out with her.
You should take that.
She said, take it. She's going to kill me.
Oh God! Hey, we were we were all young once. Oh fuck!
And this actually happened like 2 weeks ago. No, right on. That was that, and now
yeah,
that's how things were there, and it was pretty loose. I mean, we'd work hard and grind, and and a Gaitor came into that program and helped and had a huge hand in revamping the Mountaineer Park program park program, and it made it what it is now for sure, and taught us a lot, and there was a lot of other shenanigans.
Let me tell a Nick Boggs story.
I was gonna say let's Nick's talked enough. Let's send it over to Gaitor real quick. Nick Boggs story.
No,
all right. So we're
I
like,
have no shame, brother.
So Nick and Seth and I, we're like on the first build we're on together, right? And I built, at this point I built like, I don't know how many hundreds of parks, and
1 million.
They had built, however many parks they had built, and we were on
2.
we were on this trail, and the idea was I was shaping stuff, and I was expecting that they were I was in the cat, I was shaping everything, and I was shaping my way down the hill.
Yep.
And so I was putting in tiers, getting everything ready.
Yep.
And the metal was staged, and all they had to do was slide it down the hill and put it in, right? Put the steel in the ground there in the snow.
Nick, the steel was staged, bro.
Oh, I heard all
steel
about
was staged.
No. And so then, it's 1 o'clock, right? I think we started early, right? We started at 9 or 8 or 9, maybe 7. I don't know. Sun up, and it's 1 o'clock, and I'm at the bottom, and I've got the entire park shaped.
Yeah.
Waiting,
ready to go,
and I finally go back up to the top, and they haven't got not one piece of steel in the snow yet, because they're doing the old, lean on a rake, kick snow, and debate about the angle of this particular rail or whatever the fuck it is.
We were talking shit about Ken the whole time.
Whatever. They just weren't planting steel because they were in a big debate. And so I get up there and I'm like, oh man, and I'm frustrated, right? And I kick the door open, and I call Nick over, and he walks up, and it's that classic, really uncomfortable position where you're, looking up at your new boss who's sitting in his seat above you, and you're standing on the snow, like near the grouser, and it's just not a good way to communicate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Nick, God damn, it's 1 o'clock. Like, you don't have any steel in the ground. I was like, just plant the fucking steel, and I will make the takeoffs and landings work. Don't worry about it. Just stick it in there, and we got to get done. We're going to get done today. And he goes, hey, he looks right at me, right? And he goes, hey, you hear about that new radio station? And I'm like, where the fuck is this going? And he goes, it's called Drive the Cat and Shut the Fuck Up. and that's right straight to his brand new boss, like on the first build. And I just was like this, dude. Like, I just like gaping mouth, like,
Oh
my
God.
I love you, man. Like, we're done. I'll be down there. See you later.
Yeah,
you know, like I
Is
will.
that a true? Is that a, can you confirm the quote?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
That's
God.
real. And you know,
Is this
and I was
pre-Keystone or
it's either
post-Keystone?
Do or die with
Fuck
him.
you.
Like,
Is it pre-Keystone?
Oh, it's Snowshoe still. Yeah.
Yeah, no, like pre you going to Keystone.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Hey, I just like to say it's fun having this gallery back here behind us. It's just really,
I feel like
really,
they should make a little
really
bit more
helpful,
noise. It's
man.
not golf. It's not golf. It's okay. You can make some noise.
No, and from that moment, you know, I already knew I loved Nick because he had come to a Carinthia Cutters East, and that's where I met him, and that's how I ended up recruited down to Snowshoe. And I knew I loved Nick because he was a West Virginian, and he's just a lovable fucking guy.
Oh, thanks, man.
But when he said, just drive the cat and shut the fuck up, and I was like, I was like,
well, nothing was said. He's got his cat, and I was like,
I just shut the door and left.
I was like,
I did what he told me.
Well, and then I was like, I think, boys, we need to do something. Because
let's put a piece of steel in just to
I just
accommodate
started
this
making
guy.
calls. I'm like, this is going here, this is going there, and they're like, oh, okay. Well, what about? I was like, no, but we just should probably get some steel
Let's plant
set,
some steel.
put some steel in the ground. And Steph's like, oh man, what was your meeting with Ken about? I was like, oh, it's good, man. Don't worry about it.
Meeting. That was a meeting.
Because I didn't want those guys to, Ken was. I didn't, want those guys to be like, oh, that's how you talk to him.
Yeah.
Because I took a leap of faith.
You didn't want to repeat.
Know what was
You didn't want to
gonna happen.
repeat.
Yeah, that could have gone in several different ways.
Right.
If it wasn't you, I probably would have spider monkeyed somebody's ass.
I wasn't even mad. And then I was like, why would you say that? That was ridiculous.
Oh, it's heavy. Can't keep it together right now.
Yeah,
Take
well,
my trash
Snowshoe,
bag
man,
off my leg for a
it's a different breed, but that's my roots, and that's where I came from, and it made me who I am today, for sure.
Well, he's Webster County. We do everything by county.
Yeah.
And so he's Webster
shout
County,
out
raised
to
by wolves.
Dub C. Webster. Yeah.
Now, I was gonna say, Nick, give us a quick little background on maybe you.
It was a tough decision to leave Snowshoe for sure, and I really didn't think that I would go. And Laura and I were still together, and she, she's like, "You're not coming out here." And
She was like, "Take that cooler and we'll fucking go west."
Because what happened? It was abrupt. She took the job at Keystone, and I was like, "Well, I got to stay back and help these guys, set Seth up and blah blah blah." And she went out to Colorado, and I stayed behind, and she was like, "Oh, you're not coming out here." And so I was like, "Oh yeah, don't worry." So I did. Hard decision, and get out to Colorado, and I thought I had a real good grasp on what with my skill set and building parks and this and that. And I go in there, and Laverty hired me, Kevin Laverty.
Yeah, who is here this week?
Yep. It was good to see Kevin, and
cool.
he kind of once again took a leap of faith, and that park program was going through some change. Jay George and Scott and all those guys all bailed and went to Copper. So it was Tony and Kyle and Dan, a couple guys were left, and there was nothing but these nobody rookie guys, and they're like, gosh, who are these dudes? And I rolled in there, and I thought for sure, I was like, yeah, I'll show you guys what's up. And yeah, I was wrong. They let me know real quick. I was like, this is my resume. I can do this and I can do that. And
I'm from West Virginia.
Yeah, and they're like, cool, man. And I was like, yeah, Ken Gaitor taught me how to run the cat. And they're like, we don't give a shit. Get in here. Who's that? Oh yeah, it was school of the hard knocks, man. That was that old school mentality. But I hung in there, and then those guys finally, quit. They knew I could. They saw that I can take it, and I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. Throw me a bone, and they showed me a lot, and from what Ken showed me, and then Tony and Kyle, and they took me under the wing, and you learn pretty quick because they throw you right into it, and they'll let you know if it was wrong. But yeah, it was good. I'm super lucky to be there at Keystone at that time. with all that, that the gold. I don't know, called the golden.
I would call it the gold there.
Yeah, man, it was fun. Like some of the stuff we put in there, I was like, oh, I'm gonna like. I maybe lost sleep over. I was like, I don't think we're gonna murder somebody tomorrow. Yeah, and Kevin can vouch for that. And he was like, yeah, man, let it ride. And what we did there, it was big.
Yeah,
a lot.
It was known for that.
Yeah.
Well, I got another special guest question from Elijah Hamilton.
Oh boy.
Hey, Ken. You're my favorite impetus, by the way. I got to work with you on the last chair first run event at Snowshoe a couple years ago. It was super rad to see you in that environment, overseeing that project, working with your staff and contractors, and just seeing the whole thing come together was pretty impressive. I'm curious if you could tell us some of the challenges with that project, and then also, what's one of the projects that you've worked on in your career that you're most proud of? Also, I need you to explain to the listeners what a bear fight is and why I have never lost one. Love you.
Oh, man.
I know where that. Oh, my goodness. Oh, yeah. Yep. Bear fights.
Let's get to that one first.
Come on.
It's quick.
Come on.
I'm not even sure you're able to say this is PC enough. Bear fight is a
PC is possible.
An Irish car bomb followed by a Jaeger bomb. And you you line up and race, and whoever lost buys the round, which ends up being several $100s.
Or you had the option of drinking like a beer or some sort of drink out of someone's snowboard boot. Rich Knoll is the one.
Rich Knoll. He introduced us to that.
Reigning champ.
Yeah. And so then to go back, he was talking about last chair first ride, Elijah was. And
Wait. Before you go back to that, why has he never lost one?
Well, because he can deep throat a bowling ball.
I know from experience
from you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Proceed.
Yeah, he just dumps fluid into his face like it's something else.
Oh.
So that Red Bull event was cool. It was we were working with this guy named Zach from Red Bull, and he had come to the UCI World Cup the fall before, downhill mountain biking race, and had seen us put that event on. And it was the first one of those, and that is a huge challenge. I mean, these World Cups, whether it's ski racing or whatever it is, you can't believe you prepare for a full year, and it's just incredibly intense and very, very stressful. But he came there and saw that. I pitched him the vision, or Carson had that vision, came up with this vision that
Bend rider, by the way.
Yep, that there would be biking and snowboarding, a course for both that ran, kind of side by side, but would interact by crossing back and forth over one another or whatever. And so Carson had that vision. Zach and I got together, and then we started planning, and we made a lot of snow. We took the World Cup course and dressed it up, and we used a big part of the World Cup course, mostly the air portion, where they were in the air for long periods of time. And we, the next spring, put this thing on. We built 12 features where the two groups would interact. And the very bottom feature was a big jump on snow and a big jump on bike where they're side by side in the air. And it worked out. But the challenges were that you blocked yourself in, right? So you'd have a snowcat in this snow zone that could not then cross over even a 2-foot dirt path. And then all the snow was draining on to the
trail.
Dirt and making it mud.
Yeah.
And boy, I mean, and then it was so detailed that there was a big, huge problem with cleaning boots, right? When you went from one zone to the other, like if you were working on the mud or on the dirt, you couldn't walk onto the snow. So everybody had a pair of boots hung around their neck all day long they'd have a snow boot and a dirt boot, and they would have to change every time they moved. That's how weird it got, right? And it was super challenging. We had bags of concrete out there. We were trying everything we knew. We called the local hardware store and had them bring us 125 sheets of plywood on a Sunday just to get an in-run to a jump. So there were unlimited challenges, including on the second day of the build, it went to 12 degrees and snowed about 6 inches. So we had guys going down the dirt course with snow blowers blowing the snow off, and I don't know. There was a lot to it. And so the production company that came, these guys, these filmers they were incredible. Throwing Star was there, and then there was I'm going to think of his name, but the guy that was in charge of the filming is just a consummate professional. And he had watched us bust our ass for an entire week from sunup to late into the night. And he was like, we're like, listen, here's 12 features. If you can get 6 of these on film with some music, and we got a 30-second clip, which we spent, to do, not including our labor or whatever, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But they watched us work so hard that those filmers made and the writers stepped up to the plate and risked their asses. And we got every single feature, all 12 features, the whole course. And it was just an incredible thing to see in the end. And it's very campy, very unusual. But the idea, the amount of work behind it. And I brought in people that I knew from all through my career to help us do that. And it was a success. And man, what a challenge. It took every single person, every single hour to get that thing right. But I do believe it came out right. If you get a chance to look at it, it was called, Last Chair First Run.
One thing I want to bring up, speaking to construction of things is, and this is coming from Elia as well. I'm leaning on him heavily for all this, but shout out to Elia. Thank you very much. I want to talk about a specific quarter pipe and your and your ability to test the coping on the said quarter pipe.
So I had this bright idea for this feature at the bottom of the half pipe.
Did you build it, Nick? Who built it?
This is Carinthia.
Carinthia.
Before I met Nick.
Gotcha.
And I built this. I had this idea. We had, I think, a 30-foot box that was about 2 foot tall, 2 foot wide, square coping. First mistake, but I built 2 quarter pipes, about, let's say, 24 feet apart.
Yeah.
And then we cut it. We took cut the middle out, so there was nothing there at all, just this huge cavity. The quarter pipes were probably 10 feet tall. Then we took the box up and set it and spanned the quarters.
So the gap.
We tried to set the box,
Like an angle?
Yeah, at an angle facing upstream, as I'd say, or towards the pipe. And we finally got it set. We got everything raked out. It was beautiful. It looked really nice. It was shaped up well. And we all hiked up halfway up the pipe. And I was just hiking up there to, get a good view of the tester.
While you're up here.
No.
While you're up here, you check this.
That's
check
not
this
how it
out.
went at all.
All right.
No, we got up there, and even my best riders were like, "I'm not hitting that."
Yeah,
right?
I gotta go, man.
So we had this big discussion about it, and they were like, "I don't like the angle of the box," and they're like, "I don't like this," and I don't like that. And then if you come off that box in the middle, you're falling 12 feet onto your head or whatever, and it's sketchy as fuck. And nobody out of my 12 park crew, which would normally hit anything I've ever built, would hit it. And I was starting to get upset.
Nobody would ride it.
None of them. And
you
was
built
like,
it.
You motherfucker. Fuck it. I'll hit it. So all I can think is in my head that all I got to do is have enough speed.
Yeah.
I just got to get across.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly the right thing to be thinking, but
Did you board slide it or 50-50?
I was just going to 50-50 it. You know, I was just going to 50-50 across there. But what happened was I went too damn fast, and my board hit the HDPE and just slipped out, and my shins went straight into the top edge of the box. I got about halfway across and just fucking lawn darted down into the flat bottom onto luckily with my helmet, and wadded up, biggest I've ever wadded up, and like legit went out of there on a fucking toboggan. Yeah, and that's the only time.
Holy shit!
By the way, I've like had a punctured lung, and I rode from the top to the bottom to avoid the toboggan. Like I've gone through a lot in my career.
Yeah.
That's the only toboggan ride I've ever had.
Yeah.
And these poor guys came down, and they're all standing around above me. You're in that position where you got the sea collar on, and you're like, oh God, I'm that dude, you know? And and I'm like, I remember they were just starting up the sled to pull me over to the fucking clinic, and I was like, tear that down.
Like straight up, you were like, fuck that, somebody's going to kill themselves, so you're going to tear it down.
Yeah, but after I left, I guess a couple people hit it.
Wow.
They filmed it, and they did that for me, and they sent it to me. It actually did work.
Yeah.
But it didn't work with the dumbass old rider like myself trying to being stiff and pissed to go ahead and hit that thing.
I mean, and that's that stubborn, you know, that's that hard-headedness, Ken Gaitor, that
I mean, you can't.
That I met from Jump Street, you know. Well, thanks, Eric.
Eric's helping Nick out with the mic there.
That's that.
Appreciate you, Eric.
Stubbornness of Ken Gaitor that I worked with for years, and this is what we're going to do, and you're going to like it, and you know, and then. It was if not, we'd go wrestle out in the parking lot about
end of discussion.
Or I would just get told to fuck off, and you do what you wanted.
Then we'd wrestle.
Yeah.
No, it was
two. You ever do that? Really?
Fuck! Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's how disputes were settled.
Yeah, I remember one time being underneath a monster truck.
WWE style or
no? It was just like stupid man. Like I don't know.
It was fun. There was never any.
It wasn't like malicious.
There was
like,
no maliciousness.
Yeah. We were in the parking lot. It was at the Shaver Center.
It's just like a West Virginia thing, man. It's no big deal. You guys don't even need to know about it, really.
Yeah, there's this thing like either you had a regular car or your truck had like you can drive a car underneath your truck, and yeah, when we were out the
one day, we were underneath the fucking monster truck wrestling. Like I remember Dick taking my face and like rubbing it in the oil puddle and shit, like, "Oh, what do you think now, motherfucker?" Oh my God!
Yeah, and it was really going south. Land the plane.
Get to the point.
Yeah, but it was what goes around comes around, and it was loose, and I went and worked at other places. I'm like, oh, you guys don't do it like this.
As a really bad,
weird,
really bad transition.
Meet me in the parking lot.
Really, really
You're like, nah, man. Go back to West Virginia.
Well, like, okay, like maybe wrestling is a passion, but no, I do want to ask about the Blue Heelers. The dogs and the life.
Oh man, yeah, I've got two of them. They're both rescues. One I've had for about 4 years. He's a male named Rye with gigantic ears, and great guy. He's turned into be super mellow. And in the last 6 months, I picked up this little one, and named her Tui. Really, unfortunately, I don't know how that came about, but she's a bit of a wreck. And right now, my fiance is watching them, and like we're having these like twice a day discussions about how to manage the new one. She's on her fourth home, and she's not a year old.
Yeah,
and so she's a little shook that I'm not there, and she's not exactly being the stellar behavior. And poor Kara, I'm like, well, try this, and she's like, Parker, you talk about like Nick tells about how I'm a hardhead. We talked about the conflict, and let me just give you this to work with, okay?
Go.
I cook meals twice a day for my dogs. Okay.
Okay.
So like Every little, all the compassion that I don't have for human beings,
he will for a
just
dog.
goes straight to the healers, man. Like I literally do that.
Hey, I can relate just because I have 2 Springer Spaniels. But no, like the dogs are definitely a thing. They've Duke was a wedding gift to Aaron back in 2012, and Bo was like, "Oh, we should get another dog because this dog is lonely."
Oh yeah, that was the thought. Yeah.
And then it's like, well, fuck. Now we have 2 dogs that cost $500 a month.
Yeah, they're not penguins. It's fine.
No, it was just it's definitely a journey, and that was kind of like the trial before fire, right? Like, like, can you be a good parent? Like, can you be a good parent to a dog? Can you take care of it? Can you manage it? Can you feed it? So I don't know. I mean, there's definitely, I think, some relatability to human beings and wanting to have a pet. We've tried fish with our oldest child. That sucked. That did not pan out well. Trying
for the fish.
Yeah, for the fish. Because it's like, oh, you got a fish. Oh shit, the parent has to clean the tank every day, or whatever it is that the tank needs to be cleaned. Time span. But I think I don't really have a good segue into this, but I really, one of the cool things that I feel like you and we touched on this earlier, but retaining your people being essential to how you succeed. How do you do that?
A lot. Yeah, a lot. We do it a lot. I think
dive.
As you and I talked about before, one thing that's taken me, over a decade to figure out is who we are in terms of who our staff is.
There you go.
Right. So I have to come to terms with the idea that a certain percentage of the folks that come to Snowshoe and we train and we try to impart knowledge are going to move on in a couple, 2-3 years. We're not the end of the line for a lot of folks. They're either come from somewhere smaller and taking a step in between, but, or they're looking forward to moving on to a bigger resort. And so that's a tough thing when you're pouring your time into people and money, it's a tough thing to realize. And so it took me a long time, but also we have a group of people that want to stay there. We have a group of people that are, building homes, building families. The community is growing. Some of the work that we've done with the community, and I don't talk a lot about this stuff, but I spend an ungodly amount of time volunteering. It's actually gotten to the point where it's a little bit, I'm going to have to start quitting volunteering, which is weird, but to build the community and build mountain biking in the area and to make sure that our people have year-round gigs through summer stuff. We really spent a lot of energy on that. And so I think that's starting to show. And we're starting to see that we're having families come to us with young kids and move to West Virginia, which is, as long as I've known West Virginia, it was a place you moved away from. Seriously, like,
but if you want to talk about West Virginia and the economy and all that stuff, it's tourism at this point where we sit now.
So if Virginia is for lovers, what is West Virginia?
Almost heaven, just quite nearly heaven.
Okay,
yep, indeed, agreed. And there's only a couple places that people outside the state recognize, and it's Snowshoe. And it's the Greenbrier, you know what I mean? And they're very similar, close to
or
each
some
other.
Whitewater maybe. But
New River Gorge. I mean, come on, New River. But
so I think, to get around to really answering your question, succession means a lot to me because, well, there's a bit of a curse of being a West Virginian. I don't know a lot of people, like Texans love Texas. Right? I mean, to the extent that it's like absurd, maybe. Well, it's
everything's bigger in Texas.
True story, yeah.
But it's even probably a stronger thing in West Virginia. Like we are loyal to that place
to a fault,
and
loyal to a fault.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
that's
a true
the way to say it.
It's a true thing. It's a true thing,
and we give a shit so much. And so, for me to go back there, a big part of my decision making and leaving Carinthia was to literally try to help that place, to help that state. And Snowshoe is one of the biggest thing that place has going on. And it's, right next to these old abandoned coal mines, strip mines, literally right next to it. There's a strip mine on our property. And, I do a lot of work with sustainability and, and trying to help our community understand that we can move forward with tourism, which is a sustainable resource that we have.
Yep.
And we can. I make a good living in West Virginia, man.
Yeah.
Like,
what was that movie? There was a space movie, Rocket Boy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rocket Boys,
Colville.
yeah.
Colville, West Virginia.
Colville, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
That movie's amazing. Anyway. No.
And you have
Tangent.
You have Morgantown and West Virginia Mountaineers.
But no, you had
that's it.
You have 4 people that won scholarships to go to college because they won
amazing.
a science fair and took it further all the way to the nation. And Homer Hickam, there you go.
Homer
That's it.
Hickam.
Wow,
yeah,
good
true.
retention.
Yeah, good work. Yeah.
So anyway, to finish out to answer your question, I give a shit about the state. I give a shit about the people that want to be there. I give a shit about the people that have been there for generations that I believe have been basically screwed over by outside sources because everybody moves in, takes the resources, and leaves the people with shit. And so it means something to me that I succeed in helping to grow the economy of the state. And then not only that, if I don't leave a succession behind me, then what have I done? Just enough to, for a few years. That's not my goal. My goal is to really, and I'm not trying to be bigger than my britches. I understand I'm a ski resort. I'm not a cancer doctor, but I can have an impact. And if I don't prepare the next group to carry that on through, some sort of thoughtful volunteer work on the side or just continuing to grow Snowshoe, then I'm not completing the mission.
I mean, it's a true story, though. Yeah. Amen, brother.
Thank you.
No, absolutely.
Well, I got another special guest question from Elijah Hamilton.
Ken Gaitor. As a whitewater guide, your job is to provide instruction to a group of people whom you've likely never even met before. I'm curious what skills you developed on the river that influence your leadership style today. And also, you're trapped on a desert island. All you have is a case of Lagavulin 16-year-old lowland scotch that floated ashore. Would you drink it? Love you, brother.
I'll answer the second question first. As much as I hate to admit this, I'm aware of who I am. And yes, I would drink the lowland scotch. But only if it was the only choice.
Second question.
First question. So on the rafting piece, you would show up, you'd meet a group of people who you'd never met before and try to guess their athletic and listening skills ability. And my favorite line to say would be like, hey, this is just like a bank robbery. Do everything I say, nobody gets hurt. And you basically go with that philosophy. You have to command respect. You have to be loud. You have to be stubborn. But you also have to want people to like you so they give you a big tip at the end of the day. This is a beautiful...
Because you're living in a van down by the river
you're
in
in a
Fayetteville,
van.
man.
You're
Oh,
in a
yeah.
van.
We all know that story.
So
Come on. Right? Yeah, the beverages, he knows.
It's a fine balance of authority mixed with empathy, because these people are so friggin' far out of their element. They are scared to death.
It's the real deal.
And they don't generally.
Have you ever guided a river trip or a rafting trip where they've flipped? The raft flipped?
Oh, yeah.
People in the river?
What?
Yeah. I mean, numerous times, yeah. And I've also guided trips where people have died. So that's enough of that, but that's a story. So you have to gain people's respect quickly and impress upon them the importance of them listening and doing what you ask so that you can all survive together, because you're in the boat. And if they decide that they're not going to cooperate, well, you get to drown with them.
Yep.
And so it's and there's also, as Mark McKinley, a great friend of mine who I forgot to mention, who grooms out at Brighton.
I was going to say, tell us
day.
about Mark a little bit and what he does.
He trained me to be a raft guide. I trained him to operate a snowcat. Mark was very calm, great on the water, showed me everything I know out there, and then I was able to train him in winter. So it was a really unique power shift. And years later, I talked to Mark after I had left Brighton. And somebody asked a question like, so what do you think's Gaitor's management style is? And he's like, he really put some thought into it, and he goes, shaming people into action.
Oh God! Well, like, was that received well by you?
I couldn't deny it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I couldn't deny it.
If it works, it works.
And that's kind of what you did with people on the river, because there'd be a family or whatever, and you'd pick the strong one, and you'd be like, hey, you'd say, hey, what's up with your younger brother? He sucks. And you'd get the older brother to shame the younger brother into performing because you wanted to live.
Yeah,
you literally
totally.
wanted to live.
Totally.
So, yeah, I might have shamed some people into action. What do you think, Grant?
I think that's on point.
I mean, but I feel like your leadership style is definitely inclusive too. Like, and we've kind of touched on that earlier, right? Like, and
hopefully
I think
it's a little deeper than that.
Yeah. Well, I was going to go there. Like, ultimately, I feel like the deeper portion of that is, you have several personalities, multiple personalities that you manage on one staff, and from a personality standpoint and an individualistic creative viewpoint, is it a relatability thing? How do you coach that? How do you do that? I think that's my question. Yeah, sorry. How do you coach? How do you discipline? How do you train individuals who are in this new millennial age? They're all about clicks. They're all about trends. They're all about what they can see, what they can put their hands on, right? What they think they can do. And we've touched on that a little bit earlier, but I think labeling it as a personality thing. How are you leading that? How are you training that? How are you managing that? That's a tough job.
Well, what I'm hoping for is to find the attitude that can be worked with, because the rest really is training. If the attitude isn't there, like if you don't show up to work with a little bit of pep in your step, it's not going to happen every day. But if we all try, then on the days when I suck, there'll be someone there to uplift me. So that attitude is everything, and I really believe that, and I've been taught that, and it's a real cliche, but it's true. And the rest of it is training and their willingness to listen. And the camper that I was with today, named Brennan, he just listened, man. Like, I told him, and then I was wondering, because the first 4 or 5 pushes, he wasn't quite getting it, but then I realized that was a factor of my explanation, not his intelligence. And so I adjusted my explanation and started trying to do something a little more visual, try to find somewhere I could connect with this young man. And what I discovered by the end was, once I had zeroed in on the way he listens, it only took one explanation.
Yeah.
And he nailed it. And I told him that. We got about halfway through. I was like, I want you to push this to the here and then do this. And it was like a 4-step process. And he did it in the first try. And then when we're backing up, I said, you just did everything that I told you to do. I said, congratulations on being a great listener. Because, for someone like me, that's huge. So, and everybody's always ready to give you their answer to whatever it is you're not asking.
Yeah. Did you do what Jeff Ludd did with everybody else previously? Was it like, here are the 3 things that you can take away?
I've been trying to do that ever since I met Floto.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that it's inexcusable to go into a 2-hour meeting and ask people to take away 10 things.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely ridiculous. You may as well piss up a rope, right? Like, set a goal or 2 explain how you're going to get to the goal, go through the process of the meeting or the training or whatever it is, and then reiterate the goals.
Yeah.
Like, let's not make it 10 things. It's just not, who human beings aren't programmed that way.
No.
Neither am I.
Totally. I'm not. Absolutely.
If you want to tell me something about podcasting, I'm going to take about 1 or 2 tips, and that's what I can absorb.
Your treehouse. I want to know about your treehouse. I feel like that place is a little bit of serenity, a little bit of a disconnect. I think there's definitely an opportunity for you to kind of expand on the importance of what it is to disconnect from the job so that you're still a person. You don't have to go into like the creation of the treehouse, but you can at least tell us what it is to you.
Well, it's on the homeland, so it's on the Big Bend Mountain that overlooks the Greenbrier River, and it's on the mountain that John Henry raced the steam engine through. It's on the very, very top, so it has beautiful views. And then I decided that it would be excellent to make it 12 feet taller, so you'd have 12 feet more view, which actually did work. And it's all made from wood that was milled from the property by myself and my father. So it was a labor of love for the two of us to spend time together.
That's super
and then
cool.
I put an outdoor kitchen underneath it, so it's protected from weather. And at this point, my mother and father, who live about a mile from it, use it more than I do.
Nice.
To entertain, because my mother loves to entertain.
Yep.
And that makes me the happiest. Although when I go away from work and I'm ready for a break, I go there and I sleep in a little bit and I look at the fog in the valley below and I look at the 200 mile view, and really it's just like way better than anything I deserve, frankly. But it's mine, and family, friends, everyone that gets to come there loves it. And it's just been an incredibly special place that we call the Sky Barn.
Ken, if I was being totally honest with you, like we have just scratched the surface on Ken Gaitor. So there could be probably 4 episodes on Ken Gaitor. So I really want to say thank you so much for jumping on, taking the time, chat with me, chat with Nick. It's an honor. And your contributions to the industry go far beyond not just what you've done in a snowcat. So please know that. And I would very much welcome the opportunity to have you on again. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Cheers, sir. And let's have a great rest of the week.
Yeah, Parker, you're a natural, as I noted, and what you're doing is inspiring for us all. I know I can speak for everyone that's been on your cast and all the people that listen, and it's just so far from anything that I ever could have imagined that you dreamed up and you've pulled off, and so right back at you, man. Way to go.